I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to piece together what's left of my life after discovering the worst thing a man can find out about his wife. Her name was Megan. She was supposed to be my everything. We'd been married for 5 years with a baby on the way. Everything seemed perfect, or so I thought. She was beautiful, smart, the kind of girl every guy would kill to have. I was proud of her, proud of us. We had a good life, or at least I thought we did. It all started unraveling about 2 months ago. Megan had been acting strange, little things, you know. She'd stay out late, saying she was working late, when I knew damn well she was just out with her friends. Then she started canceling ultrasound appointments. That should have raised a flag right there, but I was too caught up in my own stuff to really notice how weird she was acting. She'd twist everything, make it feel like I was overreacting, calling me paranoid every time I asked her about where she'd been or what she'd been doing. But I wasn't stupid. I knew. There was something wrong. I just didn't want to accept it. I'd catch her in little lies, see her nervously check her phone every 5 minutes, and I'd wonder who she was texting or calling. Still, I told myself maybe she was just stressed, maybe she was hiding something innocent. Hell, I even tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. That's what makes what I found out so much worse. It happened one night when I was going through her phone, something I normally wouldn't do, but I had this gut feeling. I was lying in bed trying to sleep when I saw a message pop up from a number I didn't recognize. It was explicit, something about secrets, passion, and a lot of talk about getting away somewhere. My stomach sank. I clicked on the message. It was from her, Megan, and it wasn't just a one-time thing. It was months long. They'd been sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face while I was planning the nursery and getting ready for our baby. I couldn't breathe. I read more messages. How they'd meet up late at night, how she'd tell him she was bored or lonely, and how he'd reassure her they'd keep it quiet. I saw the pictures too, not explicit, thank God, but enough to know what they'd been doing. The worst part, she was 8 months pregnant at the time, 8 months, and she still found time to cheat on me with my brother of all people. That's when I lost it completely. I confronted her the next morning. I was furious, hurt, disgusted. I threw the phone on the table and told her I knew everything. Her face, God, her face was priceless. She looked guilty, then angry, then defiant. She smiled that bitchy smile she gets when she's trying to act innocent but knows she's been caught. "You're overreacting, Jason," she said, leaning back in her chair. "It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. We're not even together anymore. I don't owe you explanations." Right then I wanted to punch her. Instead, I just stared. How could she lie so easily? How could she sit there and pretend it was just passion, like that made it okay? I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. This was my wife, the woman I loved and trusted. She was supposed to be carrying our child, and she was out sleeping with my brother, my own flesh and blood. I kept asking her how long it had been going on, and she kept brushing me off, saying it was just a fling, just something she needed. That's when I realized this wasn't just some slip-up. She had been sneaking around behind my back for months, right under my nose. The emotional fallout hit hard. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I was angry, yes, but mostly I felt stupid. How did I miss all the signs? How did she manage to keep this secret for so long while I was supposed to be protecting my family? It was a betrayal that cut deeper than I ever thought possible. She told me she was done with him, that it was a mistake, but I knew better. The trust was shattered, and I didn't see how we could ever go back from this. The pain was overwhelming, and I knew it would take me a long time to even begin to process what had happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. Everything was spinning, her lies, her betrayal, the fact that I'd been so blind. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how someone I loved and trusted so much could do this to me. I felt trapped, broken, and strangely numb at the same time. I knew one thing: I'd have to make a decision soon, but right now, all I could do was sit in the darkness and try to figure out how to move forward from this. After that night, I knew I couldn't pretend everything was normal anymore. The next few days were a blur of anger, sadness, and confusion. I kept replaying the moments I missed, the signs I ignored. How did I not see it? How did I not feel it? The betrayal was so raw, so visceral, that I couldn't even think straight. I had a wife who was supposed to love me, carry our child, and start a life together. Instead, I found out she was sleeping with my brother, my own flesh and blood. I decided I had to confront her again, face her straight on. I needed answers. I needed to hear her admit everything, or at least try to justify her actions. I wanted to see if there was any ounce of remorse in her. So I called her that afternoon, told her to meet me at the park nearby. She showed up with that same bitchy smile, acting like she hadn't just destroyed everything we had built. I didn't hold back. I asked her how long it had been going on, how many times she'd met him, and why. Her excuses were so predictable, so transparent. She said she was just bored, that she didn't love me anymore, that the pregnancy was stressing her out and she needed something else. Something she kept calling passion, as if that made everything okay. She insisted that she'd always loved me and that it was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. She threw in some classic lies, trying to minimize the whole thing. She said, "It was just sex, Jason. It doesn't mean anything. It's not like I love him or anything." Yeah, right. I looked at her and I saw her trying to act like she was the victim, like I was overreacting. That made me even angrier. How dare she sit there and act like I was the crazy one? She's the one cheating, the one lying, and she's telling me I'm overreacting. I almost lost it right there. I told her exactly what I thought about her passion bullshit. She then started throwing around accusations, saying I was distant, that I wasn't paying enough attention to her, that I'd been ignoring her needs, that she was just looking for something real, something she'd been missing. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her she was full of shit. Instead, I just looked at her and told her I was done. Done with her lies, her bullshit, her sneaking around. I told her I never wanted to see her again and I was filing for divorce. But even as I said those words, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with the pain. Like a heavy weight had finally been lifted. I realized I'd been pretending for too long, pretending everything was okay, pretending I didn't see the signs, pretending I didn't know. Now I knew, and it was a bitter truth I'd have to live with. I wanted her out of my life, out of my head, out of everything. That's what I told her, and that's what I was going to do. In the days that followed, I started planning my next move. I needed to get out of this mess, not just for myself but for the baby too. I didn't want them to grow up with a mother who betrayed her own family. I knew I needed to think clearly, to make sure I protected my rights and my sanity. The betrayal had shattered my world, but I was determined not to let it destroy me completely. I'd take the high road, or at least try to, even if I was bleeding inside. I had to find a way to pick up the pieces of my life, one way or another. The days after I confronted Megan felt like walking through a fog. I couldn't believe how quickly everything had fallen apart. One moment I was a man preparing for his child's birth, excited and proud. The next I was a man who found out his wife, 8 months pregnant, no less, had been screwing around with my brother. The shock and anger simmered inside me, but I knew I couldn't stay stuck there. I had to act, had to figure out what my next step was. I started gathering evidence. I went through her phone again, digging even deeper into her messages, her photos, her calls. I knew I needed more than just the one screenshot I'd found, something concrete, something irrefutable. I also reached out to my brother Jake, my best friend since high school. I didn't tell him what I knew right away, but I wanted to hear his side. I needed to understand how it all went down, how he could betray me like that. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much from him, just a lot of bullshit denial. And I got it. Jake first played dumb, acting like he didn't know what I was talking about. "Look, man," he said, "I don't know what you think you saw, but Megan and I aren't doing anything. You're imagining things." But I knew better. I had the messages, the photos, I'd seen enough. I told Jake I'd have no choice but to take legal action if he continued to lie. He finally admitted that they'd been seeing each other off and on, but claimed it was just sex, just something they needed. That didn't make me feel better. It made me feel sick. Meanwhile, Megan was still trying to spin her lies. She'd call me crying, saying she was sorry, claiming she made a terrible mistake, that she loved me and the baby, but I wasn't buying it. Her words were hollow, her apologies empty. I could see the truth behind her eyes. She didn't care about me anymore. All she cared about was her reckless passion, that thrill of sneaking around. I saw right through her. I knew I had to get out before she dragged me any deeper into this nightmare. I decided I needed to see a lawyer. I wanted to protect myself and the baby. I was ready to file for divorce. I also wanted to know what my rights were, what kind of custody I could fight for. I felt numb but determined. This wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about reclaiming some dignity, about making sure she didn't ruin me completely. I didn't want her to think she could just get away with this, that she could hurt me and walk free. In the midst of all this chaos, I started noticing more things. Megan's clothes started disappearing from the closet. Her phone was always glued to her hand. She'd disappear for hours, claiming she was running errands, but I knew better. I'd catch her in little lies, little slips. She'd say she was going to the store and then show up at some guy's place. I could see the guilt in her eyes sometimes, but she'd quickly shake it off, act like she was the victim. That infuriated me more than anything. Her lies, her fake tears, they all felt like a slap in the face. Every day felt like a mental war. I was torn between heartbreak and rage. I didn't want to believe my wife could do this to me, to our unborn child. But I also knew I had to face reality. Megan was a different person now, someone I barely recognized. And I had no idea how to fix this, or if I even should. All I knew was I had to protect myself and my baby from her venomous lies, and I had to stay strong. Because if I didn't, she'd tear me apart completely. The decision to move forward wasn't easy, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this chaos. I made an appointment with a lawyer, got all my documents in order, and started laying out my options. The hardest part was facing the reality that everything I thought was real was built on lies. Megan's betrayal wasn't just some mistake. It was a calculated effort to destroy what we had, and I felt like I was caught in the middle of some twisted game I had no part in. As I prepared myself legally, I also started planning how to handle Megan's manipulations. She was trying to act like the innocent victim, crying and begging for forgiveness, claiming she'd changed and that she wanted to fix things, but I knew better. Her tears were fake, just another part of her act. She was trying to keep control, to make me feel guilty for even considering ending everything. That kind of guilt-tripping didn't work on me anymore. I'd learned my lesson the hard way. One night she showed up at my place uninvited. I told her I needed space, but she didn't listen. She was acting all desperate, saying she still loved me, that she wanted to fix everything. But I looked her straight in the eyes and told her she'd already broken us. I told her I wasn't going to be a doormat, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I told her that the woman I fell in love with was gone, replaced by someone who was capable of sleeping with her own brother and lying to my face for months. That's when she snapped. She called me every name in the book, accused me of being paranoid, and said I was just hurt because I couldn't handle losing control. Her words made my blood boil, but I kept my cool. I knew she was trying to push me into a corner to make me doubt myself. But I refused to fall for it. My mind was made up. I was done. I was done with her lies, with her betrayal, with the lifetime of trust I'd wasted on her. In the days that followed, I started moving things out of the house. It was a brutal process, packing up memories, things we'd built together, knowing that each item was a reminder of everything she'd destroyed. I didn't want to leave anything that could be used against me or that might keep her trying to manipulate the situation. I wanted a clean break. I wanted to purge all the pain and the lies from my life. It was like tearing off a bandage slowly, knowing that each pull hurt like hell but was necessary for healing. Throughout all this, I kept asking myself how I'd let it get this far, how I'd been so blind, so trusting. But I also knew I had to forgive myself for that. I did nothing wrong. She was the one who crossed the line. Still, the betrayal haunted me. I kept thinking about the future, about raising my child without her, without the woman I thought I knew. It was overwhelming. I'd never imagined I'd be here, fighting for my own sanity and survival. But I was determined to come out of this stronger. I had to. For me, and for the baby I was still trying to protect from this chaos she brought into our lives. By the time I finished moving out, I felt like I'd been through a war. Every box I packed, every piece of furniture I took away, felt like a small victory over the chaos she'd unleashed. But inside, I was still a mess. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I'd ever fully recover. I kept replaying everything: her lies, her sneaking around, her dismissive attitude when I confronted her. It was hard to believe that the woman I loved had betrayed me so completely, especially when she was carrying my child. I stayed quiet for a while after I left, trying to process what had happened and figure out my next move. I had hired a lawyer, started the divorce process, and was preparing for a battle over custody. I knew Megan would fight me hard. She always had that bitchy, manipulative streak. But I was ready. I wanted to make sure she couldn't use the baby against me or manipulate my emotions anymore. I also made it clear to her that I would be involved in my child's life, no matter what she tried to say or do. Meanwhile, my relationship with Jake, my brother, was strained to the breaking point. I still couldn't wrap my head around how he could do this, how he could betray his own family. But I also knew I had to focus on myself and my child now. I couldn't let his actions define me, even if it hurt to think about how he'd shattered the trust that was supposed to be unbreakable. I kept my distance from him, told him I needed space to heal. I didn't want his apologies or explanations. I just wanted to be done with the chaos to get a fresh start. Megan, on the other hand, didn't seem to get the message. She kept trying to reach out, crying, begging for a second chance. She'd send texts, call me at all hours, pretending she was the victim. It was pathetic. I could see through her now. All the tears, all the apologies, they were just another manipulation tactic. She wanted to keep control, to make me feel guilty, but I refused to fall for it. I'd already lost so much trust, and I knew I'd never get it back. The pain of her betrayal still burned inside me, but I was determined to move on. What was hardest to accept was the fact that I was going to be a single dad, raising my child without the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. The idea that she'd been sleeping with my brother, someone I'd trusted like family, made me question everything. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I could ever believe Megan was someone I could count on. Every day I fought to hold it together, to keep my emotions in check, so I could give my kid the life I wanted to provide, one free from lies and betrayal. Looking back, I realize I've learned a lot from this mess. Trust is fragile, and people will surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways. I wish I could say I've moved on completely, but I haven't. There's still pain, still anger, but I've also learned that I have to protect myself and my future. I have to be cautious, honest with myself about what I deserve. And I know now that no matter how deep the betrayal, I can survive. I can rebuild. It just takes time and a lot of strength I didn't know I had. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize how much this ordeal has changed me. I used to believe in fairy tale endings, in trust and loyalty, but now I know better. People are complicated, and sometimes they hide who they really are until it's too late. Megan's betrayal was a wake-up call, one I never wanted but I needed. It's hard to admit, but I've grown stronger because of it. I've learned to rely on myself, to value honesty, and to never ignore the small red flags again. I've taken steps to heal, even if the scars are still fresh. I'm focusing on my son, making sure he grows up loved and protected from the chaos Megan poured into our lives. Divorce is final now, and I've started rebuilding my life from scratch. It's slow, it's painful, but it's necessary. I've realized that holding on to anger and pain only keeps me stuck. Forgiveness isn't about her. She doesn't deserve it. It's about freeing myself so I can move forward. Looking back, I wish I could go back in time and do things differently. Trust my instincts sooner, see the warning signs, protect myself better. But I also know I can't change the past. What I can do is learn from it. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this. Trust is a gift, but it's fragile. Be cautious, be aware, and don't ignore the signs. Don't let someone's lies and manipulations break you. You're stronger than you think. Sometimes, the worst betrayals teach us the most about ourselves, about resilience, about boundaries, about what we truly deserve. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I'm still here, still fighting, still trying to find peace. I'm rebuilding my life, one day at a time, with my son by my side. And even though I'm scarred, I am not broken. I've learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to truly find yourself. That's what this has been for me, an awakening. A painful, brutal awakening, but one that's made me realize what really matters. And that's how I'm going to move forward, stronger, wiser, and more guarded than ever, but also more hopeful. Because even after all this, I still believe in the possibility of trust, of love, of genuine happiness. It just takes the right people and enough time to heal. I'm not there yet, but I will be. I have to be for me and for my son. That's all that matters now.